As the United States approaches its 250th anniversary, it is easy to view our history as a collection of massive, formal documents. We define the past through the heavy parchment of declarations, the bound pages of treaties, and the rigid text of the Constitution. But these top-down records rarely capture the lived reality of the people mentioned in the margins. They represent the signatures of a few men in a quiet room, missing the noise and emotional weight of the millions living outside it. For a bottom-up record of the American experience, we have to look at personal letters. These are the unedited thoughts of frontline soldiers, marginalized families, and everyday citizens, written in the heat of the moment. To track how this country actually evolved, we are going to open the archives. We will follow the timeline of the American experience by reading the reality tucked inside envelopes over the last century and a half. The most accurate history of this country isn't found in a textbook. It was written in fading ink by ordinary people trying to survive. In the 1860s, physical mail was the only thing tethering the home front to the battlefield. For the Walters family, these handwritten notes were a lifeline during the nation's deadliest conflict. Rachel Walters acted as the family's central communication hub. From her home, she relayed news between her husband David and his brothers, Isaac and John Wesley, who were both serving in the Indiana Cavalry. For months at a time, a single sheet of paper was the only proof a husband or brother was still breathing. When the mail stopped, a family was left to wonder if they were in a hospital, a prisoner of war camp, or a nameless grave. To find answers, families turned to Clara Barton and her missing soldiers office. Barton's team used vast correspondence networks to trace the fates of thousands of men who had vanished into the fog of war. Rachel Walters used this network to finally confirm David's death in a prisoner of war camp. This verification allowed her to secure a widow's pension 3 years after the war ended, providing a measure of financial stability for her family. In the 1860s, a letter was a functional tool. It was the only evidence available to prove life, confirm death, and secure the future of a fractured family. By the 1910s, letters anchored the mundane details of American life. A 26-year-old Harry S. Truman wrote from his family farm to explain he couldn't visit his future wife, acting instead as chief nurse for his injured father. But this quiet rural existence was being upended elsewhere. Between 1916 and 1918, the Great Migration began as African American families looked for any possible route out of the rural South. These African American families used the postal system to reach beyond their personal circles. They sent letters to northern labor agencies and newspapers, seeking information on where they could find work and safety. Many directed their pleas to the Chicago Defender. The newspaper became a proxy communication hub, receiving letters from migrants who were ready to move as soon as they were promised good wages and good living conditions. These writers were looking for specific opportunities. They asked for train passes and job leads, writing that they wanted to go anywhere so long as I go where a man is a man. For a family in the Jim Crow South, 2 cents of postage bought a direct line to a factory job in Chicago or a home in Philadelphia. During World War II, the scale of personal communication created a logistical crisis. The military had to move millions of letters across global supply lines already straining to carry weapons and fuel. Soldiers like Malcolm Mickey Thurgood, a photographer for the intelligence-gathering Alsos mission, wrote home constantly to his wife and daughter. Thurgood's letters documented the grit of the front, from the monotony of peeling potatoes to his profound shock at the death of war correspondent Ernie Pyle. He wrote that he would cherish Pyle's memory in the same sepulcher of my mind as the greatest thinkers of his age. To move these messages without taking up vital cargo space, the military used Victory Mail, or V-Mail. V-Mail letters were photographed and shipped as tiny microfilm negatives, then printed back to paper for delivery. This data shows the impact. 150,000 standard letters weighed over 2,500 pounds. On microfilm, that same volume fit into a single 45-pound sack. There was a security bonus, too. Because the letters were photocopied onto microfilm, the process automatically stripped away any invisible ink or microdots used by enemy spies, which wouldn't reproduce in a photograph. To sustain morale across a global war, America had to industrialize intimacy, converting the emotional necessity of a letter into a high-efficiency military asset. Today, these time capsules are physically vulnerable. The paper is brittle, the ink is fading, and the cursive script is becoming harder for modern eyes to read. Historians at the Veterans History Project are working to preserve these voices before the paper disintegrates. This involves transcribing thousands of letters line by line. By converting handwritten notes into digital text, they ensure the lived reality of these soldiers and families remains accessible to researchers in the future. As we look back on 250 years, the formal dates and high-level treaties begin to blur. But the human anxiety, resilience, and hope captured in these letters remain clear. The history of this country belongs to the people who lived it, proving that our most enduring stories are the ones we told each other in the dark.